Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My dear students, today we are going to do in the respiratory pathology the pneumonias. As you can see here in the picture, this is a very descriptive picture of the pneumonia. The causative agents are there, the inflammatory mediators are there, and the children is showing you the symptoms of the symptoms of the pneumonia. So, what is pneumonia? Pneumonias can be defined as the infection of the lung parenchyma, and the most important clinical standpoint are the identification of the causative agent. These identification of the causative agent is very necessary, because if you are unable to do so, you are unable to treat these patients. So without identifying the causative agents, it is impossible to go for the extension of the causative agent. And the second most important thing is the determination of the extent of the disease. How far this pneumonia has gone in this patient is very important. So two things are important in the infection of the lung of the parenchyma. One is what is the causative agent behind it, and second one is how much of your lung parenchyma has been disturbed. Second most important thing in the pneumonias is pneumonias can result whenever there is a deficiency or there is a defect in a local defense mechanism. So if there is any problem in your local defense system, like Cartagena syndrome, like anything, like patient is having a sepsis, patient is having any problem which is impairing its local defense mechanism in the respiratory system, it can result into the pneumonia. Then the systemic resistance of the host is lowered, his immunity is lowered, he is on steroids, the transplant patients, so their systemic resistance is already low. The factors that affect the resistance in general include chronic diseases that we have just talked. Patient is having a chronic disease like SLE, like rheumatoid arthritis, like COPD. Immunological deficiencies that I've just talked about it. Patient is having any problem that is affecting its immune status. Treatment with immunosuppressive agents, especially in chronic diseases and in transplant patients, or the patient is having a leukopenia, decrease in the white blood cell count, can render these patients to susceptible, or can cause susceptibility to be having a pneumonia. Local defense mechanism of the lungs can be inferred by many factors. There could be loss or suppression of the cough reflex, and this loss or the suppression of the cough reflex can occur in a comatose patient, in an anesthetic, and when patient are having under the anesthesia. In any neuromuscular disorders, some drugs are also going to cause the suppression of the cough reflex or chest pain, and so these things, whenever there is a problem or there is a loss or there is a suppression of the cough reflex, it can lead to the aspiration of the gastric content, and patient can present you with the aspiration pneumonia. So second most important thing that is important in the local defense mechanism is the injury to the mucociliary apparatus, and I have just told you about the ciliary dyskinesia, and the we have talked about COPDs, that there will be the loss of the mucociliary apparatus here. Then there could be the accumulation of the secretion like chronic bronchitis, bronchiectasis. So there will be the mucus plugs formation like cystic fibrosis. So these can aggravate the pneumonia. Then there could be the interference with the phagocytic or bactericidal action of the alveolar macrophages, like in tobacco, like in alcohol, anoxia, oxygen intoxication. So these can also lower the local defense mechanisms of the lung. And the pulmonary congestion and the edema because of the right-sided heart failure are also very important factors. So pneumonias can occur because of the defects in the innate immunity, and also there's a deficiency in the humoral immunity. So, and these can occur in wherever there is an infection with the pathogenic bacteria. Whereas cell-mediated immune defects are concerned, These are lowered in the patients who are having the infections with the mycobacteria or herpes virus, as these are the intracellular microbes, or these can occur with the microorganisms of a very low virulence, such as pneumocystis jirovecii. So in case there is a low cell mediated immunity, microorganisms of very low virulence can also cause the pneumonia. If we are going to talk about the portal of entry, the bacteria can enter from the respiratory tract. These can enter from the hematogenous route, blood spread, that I've talked about, the sepsis. Secondary seedlings can go into the lungs from the neighboring areas. Patients with chronic diseases which are having the terminal pneumonias while hospitalized. So this table is very important for you people, and because in your university questions you are asked that you have to give the causative agents for community acquired pneumonia. The most important one is the strep pneumoniae, then Haemophilus influenza, Moraxella, and Staphylococcus aureus, and Legionella pneumonia. We are going to discuss all of these one by one. Then comes community acquired atypical. First of all, we have done the community acquired typical pneumonias, then atypical pneumonias. And atypical pneumonias, the most important is the Mycoplasma pneumoniae. Just remember, in community acquired, the most important is strep pneumoniae, while in community acquired atypical, it is Mycoplasma pneumoniae. Other ones are chlamydia, coaxella, and viruses like respiratory syncytial virus, SARS virus, influenza virus. Then comes hospital acquired pneumonia. Whenever there is a patient who has been hospitalized for a longer duration or debilitating patients, then gram-negative rot, Enterobacteriaceae, Pseudomonas, Staph aureus can cause hospital acquired pneumonias. As far as we have just talked about the aspiration pneumonias, that the gastric contents can go into the lungs. So aspiration pneumonia can go from your oral flora, anaerobic oral flora, and you all know that bacteroids are rich in bacteroids, Prevotella or Fusobacterium are rich in the oral flora. Then there could be admixed with the aerobic bacteria like strep pneumoniae, Staphylococcus aureus, Pseudomonas, and Haemophilus. These can cause aspiration pneumonia. Then we are going to talk about chronic pneumonias. And chronic pneumonias, the most important ones are the Mycobacterium tuberculosis, Histoplasmosis, Coccidomycosis, Blastomycosis, Actinomyces, and Nocardias. Then we are going to talk about sixth most important class, and that is necrotizing pneumonias, and it is associated with the lung abscess. The most common cause of the necrotizing pneumonias are the anaerobic bacteria, and these could be mixed or without the aerobic infections like Staph aureus, Klebsiella pneumonias, and Strep pyogenes. Then comes a pneumonia in the immunocompromised host. Many of the times in university question it has been asked that the patient is a drug addict. So what is the most important causative agent in these pneumonias? So my dear students, just remember cytomegalovirus and pneumocystis jirovecii. I've just talked about, although it's of very low virulence, but it can cause. And the other most important one is the Mycobacterium avium intracellular complex, and the fungus can also cause. So invasive aspergillosis, invasive candidiasis can also cause pneumonia in the immunocompromised host. So this table is very important. I'm telling you, this table, many of the times these questions have been asked from you people. So this is your university questions. As far as symptoms of the pneumonias are concerned, as there is an infection, so patient is going to present you, there is an inflammatory reaction going on in the lungs, so patient is going to present you with a cough, patient is going to present you with a fever, patient is going to present you with a chest pain, headache, and there is a pallor of the skin because oxygenation is not going on very well. So as far as morphology is concerned, this is the second most important question from your university point of view. So this is your UQ also, that what is the morphology of the pneumonia. So this is also an assignment for you people. You have to tell me that how you are going to classify pneumonias on the morphological basis. So on the morphological basis, you are going to divide it into two types. bronchopneumonias and the low-borne pneumonias. As far as bronchopneumonias are concerned, there are the patchy consolidation. So here is a lung. So there is a patch here, there is a patch here, there is a patch here, and this we are going to call as bronchopneumonia. But if there is a whole of the lobe or entire lobe or large portion of the lobe is going to be affected, like this portion is going to be affected, then this is going to be called as low-borne pneumonia. So whole lobe is radiopaque in low-borne pneumonia, whereas there are the focal opacities in the bronchopneumonia on the X-rays. So this is a picture of the bronchopneumonia. Here you can see that these are your patchy distribution in the lower and the mid zone, while here the whole of your lower lobe is affected in the low-borne pneumonia. So this is very important because this classification has been asked from you people. Then your third most important question and your assignment for today is that you have to tell me about the 4 stages of the pneumonias. So 4 stages of the pneumonias, whether they are low-borne pneumonia or whether they are the bronchopneumonias, are congestion, red hepatization, gray hepatization and resolution. We are going to talk about one by one about each other. Here you can see that the whole of your lung has been affected. So this is a picture of the low-borne pneumonia, and here you can see that this fleshy appearance, this meaty appearance of the lung has lost, and there are opening of the bronchi and the bronchioles have also been lost here, and this area is showing you there's some pussy discharge also. So first stage is the congestion. As you know, whenever there is an inflammation, there is a congestion, there is a vascular permeability will be increased. So your lung, because of the increase in the lung permeability, there is a vascular engorgement. Your lungs will be heavy, boggy and red. This is very important, my dear students. I'm telling you, these 4 stages are very important from your university point of view, and because there is an inflammatory, so you are going to have intraalveolar fluid with the neutrophils and the numerous bacteria. While second stage is red hepatization. As your congestion is progressing, your inflammation is progressing, your lobe is now going to appear distinctly red, firm and airless, and these are having a liver-like consistency. Just remember, this consistency is very important because in university MCQs you have been asked that what is the stage in which you are having a liver-like consistency. So it is a red hepatization, because there is a confluent exudate, there will be exudate, and there are lots of neutrophils and red cells, and there will be the healing process has also been started because fibrin is going to fill your alveolar spaces. So this is your respiratory bronchioles, these are your alveoli, and in your alveoli you are going to have fluid, you are going to have fibrin, you are going to have neutros, you are going to have RBCs. So whole of your alveoli are mixed with the process of the inflammation and the healing. So here is a picture. Here you can see lots of inflammatory cells. This is inflammatory, this is inflammatory. All of your alveoli is filled with the inflammatory. Again here, all the inflammatory cells are here. Here again, all acute inflammatory cells, and if you can see here, now macrophages are also coming there, your plasma cells are also coming here. So you are having the chronic inflammatory cells are also coming along with your acute inflammatory cells. So this is a phase of acute congestion and red hepatization. Then comes your gray hepatization. In gray hepatization, what is going to happen, that there will be the progressive disintegration of their red cells. So because of the disintegration of the red cells, there will be the appearance of the gray cells, and there will be the persistence of the fibrinosuppurative exudate. So the appearance of the lungs will be grayish brown and it will be dry. So your congestion phase has gone down, but your fibrosis phase has been started. So here you can see these are your lung area, and here you can see that there is a fibrosis is going on in your alveolar spaces. Lots of fibrosis, thickened walls is there. So your pores of Cohen's are also going to be blocked here. These are your pores of Cohen's. Again, a fibrotic foci is here. So this is the phase of your gray hepatization. Still acute inflammatory cells are there. Lots of acute inflammatory and some chronic inflammatory cells are also there here. Then comes your phase of the resolution. Consolidated exudate within the alveolar spaces undergoes progressive enzymatic digestion. As you know that all the inflammatory cells are there, so they are going to cause your enzymatic digestion and these are going to produce granular or semi-fluid debris. Ingestion of these exudate is by the macrophages, and then there will be the fibroblast, which is going to cause the fibrosis in the lung. Here you can see that these are your fibrotic foci are there. Lots of fibrotic foci are there. So whole of your lung has undergone the phase of resolution. Your inflammatory cells are there, and these inflammatory cells are eating up the exudate. Now comes your bronchopneumonias. So foci of bronchopneumonias are the consolidated areas of the acute suppurative inflammation. These are the well-developed lesions, and these are slightly elevated. Here you can see that this is the lung, so we are having the patchy areas of the bronchopneumonia. These are showing you the slight elevation. These are dry, granular, red to grey to yellow, and poorly delimited at the margins. Sometimes you can see that all the faces, like red face, like congestion phase, red hepatization, grey hepatization, and resolution are all going on there. So these are the well-developed lesions. Here you can see here. This is the patches of the bronchopneumonia. These are your dry and granular types of area. Here you can see the granular types of area. The appearance is of gray, red to yellowish. Almost we are having the yellowish appearance in this picture, and sometimes the margins are very much well defined like here, but sometimes margins are not very well defined. So histologically, again the same pictures. These are flooded with the neutrophil, suppurative, and exudates. These are which filling the bronchi. Again filling the bronchi and the alveolar spaces. All the acute inflammatory cells are here. Now we are going to talk about the symptoms. I've just talked about the symptoms. High fever is there, shaking chills, cough, and hemoptysis is there. In fibrinous suppurative pleuritis, if your pneumonia is going to spread into your pleural space, then there will be the pleuritic pain, and if you are placing the hand on the lung, then you can feel the pleural friction rub, and this is just like that your cat is patting your hand. So this is the same feeling of the pleural friction rub. As far as the most important causative agents of the community acquired pneumonia is concerned, it is strep pneumonia. My dear students, just remember this thing. This is your third most important question, that what is the most important causative agent of the community acquired pneumonia, and that is streptococcus pneumonia. That is on the gram staining, it is going to show you that in the neutrophils it is having a gram positive lancet shaped diplococci, and these are your strep pneumonias. Blood cultures is very specific but less sensitive in the early phase. Then comes the second most important count, and that is the Haemophilus influenzae. As you all know, that is the gram negative bacteria, and it is very life threatening in lower respiratory tract infections and meningitis in the young children. So if you are going to talk about community acquired pneumonia in the young children, the most important is the Haemophilus influenzae. So in adults, strep pneumonia, and in kids you are going to write in your assignment about the Haemophilus influenzae. In adults, it is very common cause of a community acquired pneumonia. So forms are capsulated forms and the uncapsulated form. The most prevalent are the uncapsulated forms. Uncapsulated form dominates the unencapsulated form by secreting the antibiotic like hemosin. So we have to be very blood culture is very important to see whether it is what is the role of the sensitivity of the culture sensitivity. Pathogenesis, as far as concerned in the H. influenzae, there are the pilas on the surface of the H. influenzae, which is going to adhere to the organism in the respiratory epithelium, and this is going to secrete the factors which are going to disorganize your ciliary beatings. So there will be the mucociliary disturbances, and it is also going to secrete the proteases, which is going to degrade the IgA immunoglobulin, and you know that IgA is a very important immunoglobulin in the secretions, which is very protective also. H. influenzae is the most common cause of the suppurative meningitis in children up to 5 years of the age, and acute purulent conjunctivitis can also occur in the children. In older individuals, it can cause septicemia, endocarditis, pyelonephritis, cholecystitis, and suppurative arthritis. And H. influenzae is also very common in the acute exacerbation of the COPD, that we have just talked that in the COPD patients, the patients are very susceptible to have pneumonia, especially by H. influenzae. Then comes Moraxella catarrhalis. This is the second most important bacteria causing the acute exacerbation of the COPD, and it will also cause the otitis media in the children. Then comes Staph aureus, secondary bacterial pneumonia in children, and the healthy adults following viral pneumonia are because of the Staphylococcus aureus, and it is very important. Staph aureus is very important in IV drug abusers, and it is also can cause endocarditis, hospital-acquired pneumonias, and high incidence of the complications like lung abscess. And if it can go into the pleural cavities, then there could be the empyema. Klebsiella pneumoniae is a gram-negative bacteria, and this is most commonly causing pneumonias in the debilitated and malnourished patients, and especially chronic alcoholics. Then comes Pseudomonas aeruginosa. You have talked and you have learned this bacteria. Lots of this bacteria has a role with the cystic fibrosis patient, and this is very much common in the hospital-acquired pneumonias. Then comes your Legionella pneumonias, and this Legionella pneumonias is very important in the artificial aquatic environments, and the mode is by the aerosolized inhalation of the aerosolized organism or contaminated drinking water. So Legionella is all concerned with the aquatic or the watery environment. So Legionella pneumonia is very important to diagnose, and the rapid diagnosis can be facilitated. You can see the Legionella antigen in the urine, positive fluorescent antibody test on the sputum samples, and culture remains the gold standard. So before the culture report comes, you can always have these two tests in the urine, on or on the sputum. So as far as the complications of the pneumonias are concerned, the complications include tissue destruction and necrosis. So there will be the abscess formation that we have just talked about, is that this abscess, the patient is going to present you with the foul smelling, with a greenish cough and the sputum, and there could be empyema if there is the pleural cavity is going to be involved, and from the lungs there could be bacteriemic dissemination, and it can cause the metastatic abscesses, endocarditis, meningitis, or the arthritis. So now we are going to talk about the viral and mycoplasma pneumonias in the atypical variety of the community-acquired pneumonias. These are basically acute febrile respiratory diseases which are characterized by the patchy inflammation in the lungs and largely confined to the alveolar septa and the pulmonary interstitium. So community-acquired atypical pneumonia patient is going to present you with a moderate amount of the sputum, and there will be no physical findings of consolidation can be seen in the atypical pneumonia because it is having a very atypical type of presentation. So only moderate amounts of white cell count will be erased, and this is very important. I have just talked about it, that there is no alveolar exudate. All the exudate will be along with the alveolar septa and in the pulmonary interstitium. So this is the major difference. Just remember this difference. Community acquired atypical pneumonia, it could be the involvement could be patchy like a bronchopneumonias, but it can involve the lobes unilaterally or bilaterally, making it lobar pneumonia. The affected areas could be red, blue, or congested, and the pleura is smooth. The morphology, if we are going to concern, and we have just talked that predominantly it is interstitial in nature. Just remember this thing. And walls of the alveoli are going to be affected. Alveolar septa are going to be widened, edematous, and there will be the mononuclear inflammatory infiltrates of the lymphocytes, macrophages, and plasma cells can be seen here. In acute cases, neutrophils can be there. So complications of atypical pneumonias are acute respiratory distress syndrome. There could be superimposed bacterial infections, and it can cause ulcerative bronchitis, bronchiolitis, and bronchial bacterial pneumonias. Herpes simplex, varicella, and adenoviruses can cause necrosis of the bronchiolar and alveolar epithelium. So there could be the acute inflammation. The causative agents, the most important causative agents of the atypical pneumonias are the mycoplasma pneumonias, and especially in children and young adults. Then influenza virus, respiratory virus, adenovirus, chlamydia, and coxella. As far as the pathogenesis is concerned, this organism is going to adhere to the upper respiratory tract epithelium, and because of the attachment to the upper respiratory tract epithelium, it is going to inhibit the mucociliary clearance, and there will be the necrosis of these cells, and there will be the inflammatory response going on in your respiratory epithelium. So there will be the secondary bacterial infection which are going on. Then comes your influenza virus. There will be the clearance of the primary influenza virus infection by the cytotoxic T cells, which are going to kill your virus infected cells, and these can also be induced by the macrophages, which are going to release the interferon gamma and the interferon beta. The most important thing that you have been asked in the influenza virus about the antigenic drift and the antigenic shift. I know that you have been taught in your community medicine department about the antigenic shift and antigenic drift. These are very important because epidemics are being caused by the antigenic drift, and there is a epidemic due to the hemagglutinin and neuraminidase that allow the virus to escape. Most host antibodies are going to cause these antigenic drift. While what is the antigenic shift? That both these hemagglutinins and neuraminases are replaced through the recombination of the RNA segments in the antigenic shift, and these are going to cause the pandemics. So the recent pandemic that we have been talking about is also, and you have seen that SARS virus is also showing you this antigenic shift and has caused the pandemics few years back. Avian virus, this is very important virus because in the last few years this virus has affected lots of people. So, and you must have talked about H5N1 virus. So tissue tropism of H5N1 influenza virus is basically because of its unusual structure of the hemagglutinin protein, and this hemagglutinin protein of H5 influenza virus can be cleaved by the ubiquitin protease pathway. Influenza virus is going to cause the cleavage by the proteases in the organisms and lungs. So this is going to cause the necrosis in the respiratory epithelium. So whenever there is an antigenic recombination occurs between the H5 influenza virus and the other strains of the influenza virus, so there will be the antigenic recombination. It is highly infectious for the humans, and it can cause transmission from human to human and could give rise to the pandemic. So morphology, if we are going to talk about the morphology in the virus affected or H5N1 infected lungs, there will be the mucosal hyperemia and the swelling, lots of lymphocyte plasma cell in the submucosa. There will be the overproduction of the mucus secretion, There will be the plugging of the nasal channels. There will be the tonsillitis, laryngobronchitis, bronchiolitis, lung atelectasis, obstructive bronchiolitis. Permanent lung damage can happen because of the fibrosis and the damage and the necrosis to the lung. Then you must have been reading about SARS virus. This is a coronavirus, and its incubation is from 2 days to 10 days, and patient is going to present you with the dry cough, malaise, myalgia, fever, chills. 1/3 of the patients are going to improve, and rest is very important. So you just have to give patients the rest and the supportive therapy. 10% of these patients can die from this illness because there is no specific therapy which is available. How you are going to diagnose? The most important diagnostic or the gold standard is by the PCR. So viruses are going to be detected by the PCR. SARS lung is going to show you the diffuse alveolar damage, or the other name is DAD, diffuse alveolar damage can be seen here, and multinucleated giant cell can be seen here. As you know that in virus you are having the lymphoplasmacytic type of inflammation, and also the macrophages can be seen here. If we are going to see by the electronic microscopy, coronavirus can be seen within the type 1 and type 2 pneumocytes. Now we are going to talk about chronic pneumonias. As you know that this chronic pneumonias can only occur on the patients which are immunocompetent, patients with or without regional lymph nodes involvement. And we have just talked about that the inflammatory reaction is granulomatous, and the most important causative agents is Mycobacterium tuberculosis in the bacteria, or in the fungus Histoplasmosis, Nocardias, and the others. The most important causative agents of the fungus are Histoplasmosis, and this can be seen in the people who are living by Ohio and Mississippi rivers. Blastomycosis in the central and southeastern United States में, and coccidioidosis in southwest and far west of the United States and Mexico. As far as histoplasmosis is concerned, it is basically a intracellular parasite which lives in the macrophages, and you can see here. So it can occur from the inhalation of the dust particles from the soil, which is contaminated with the birds and bad droppings. Many of the times you have been asked question, and third year you are there was your university question that patient was a bird keeper and he has developed a pneumonia. So what is the most important causative agent? So remember this thing: because of the inhalation of the dust which is rich in the birds or bad droppings, can give rise to the histoplasmosis, chronic pneumonia. So it is chronic and it can localize to the lung abscess. Symptoms are same like cough, fever, and night sweat. Localized lesion in the extrapulmonary sites like mediastinum, adrenals, livers, or meninges can also happen. It can become a widely disseminated disease if the patient is immunocompromised. And on the chest radiograph, this is very important. Whenever you have been given the scenario of the histoplasmosis, first thing is your bird dropping, and second most important is on the chest radiograph is your coin lesion. As far as pathogenesis is concerned, we have just about that it's an intracellular. So it is going to internalize into the macrophages after opsonization with the antibiotic, and it is going to multiply within the phagosome. It is going to then lyse the host cells, and then it is going to histoplasma infections are controlled by the helper T cell, and they are going to secrete the interferon gamma, which are going to activate further macrophages, which are going to secrete the TNF, which are going to recruit the macrophages to kill the histoplasmosis, and then it can reside here. So this is the most important lesion. Here you can see this is the most important, and on radiographic this is going to appear as a coin lesion. Here you can see the histoplasmosis. All of these are histoplasmosis. Then comes your blastomycosis. These diseases can be cause pulmonary blastomycosis, disseminated, and primary cutaneous form. Primary cutaneous form can look like warts, ulcers, and they can appear from color. Their colors can be from gray to violet, and the main areas can be from nose and mouth, and there can be easily bleeding from the ulcers. If we are going to talk about pulmonary blastomycosis, which is very important here, the patient is going to present you with a cough, with a chest pain, night sweats, fever, general discomfort, muscle pain, and unintentional weight loss. There could be a lobar consolidation, multilobular infiltrates will be there, perihilar infiltrates will be there, and we have just talked in chronic pneumonias, there will be the suppurative granulomas. Here you can see these are your blastomycos. Here you can see again another, and alongside with there are all your inflammatory cells. Some are the plasma cells, some are the lymphocytes. Again, this is your blastomycosis. A very beautiful picture. Then coccidioidomycosis, it is also going to cause the granulomatous lesions, and there will be the spherules which are going to rupture, and they are going to release the endospores. So there will be the pyogenic reaction is going on in whole of your lungs, and if it can spread, it can involve the lungs, meninges, skin, bones, adrenal, lymph nodes, and purulent lesions are mainly dominate the patient with diminished resistance or immunocompromised patients with widespread dissemination. Here you can see lots of coccidioidomycosis. Whole of this area has been flooded with the coccidioidomycosis. So the complication of the pneumonia is the lung abscess. So it is a local suppurative process within the lung, and it is characterized by the necrosis of the lung tissue. The most important causative agents are the aerobic and anaerobic streptococci, Staph aureus, gram negatives, and anaerobic organisms which are normally found in the oral cavities but can come into the lungs because of the aspiration pneumonias. Then there could be aspiration of the infected materials, like in patients who are comatose patients whose cough reflexes are depressed. Then there could be a septic emboli, and then there could be a neoplasm which is going to cause the post-obstructive pneumonias, and then there could be a direct traumatic penetrations of the lungs, spread of the lungs from the neighboring organisms, and there could be hematogenous spread which can form the lung abscess. So there are multiple causes of the lung abscess, or there could be primary cryptogenic lung abscess. Here you can see this thing. This is the boundary or the walling off of the area of the lung abscess. Whole of the area is showing you the inflammatory rich exudate, and there is a necrosis here. Here you can see suppuration there. Again, the whole area has been necrosed. So there is an inflammation. You can't see a normal viable tissue in this picture. So this is a picture of the lung abscess. There is a suppurative destruction which we have just seen, and there is this within the central area of the cavitation, and patient can present you with the most important thing is the foul smelling or purulent sanguineous sputums along with the cough and fever, and in the later stages there will be the clubbing of the fingers and the toes. And it is very important to go for the MRI or CT scan, because whenever there is a lung abscess, there is an underlying carcinoma in 10 to 15% of the patient, which is causing the post-obstruction lung abscess. So the diagnosis can be done on the chest X-ray. As on the chest X-ray, it is often unilateral and single, and normally the most area that is being involved is the posterior segments of the upper lobe, or the apical segments of the lower lobes are going to infect. And on the X-ray you can see the air fluid levels, because there will be the rupturing into the bronchial tree, and there will be the gas forming organism which is showing you the air fluid levels. By laboratory you can see that there will be raised inflammatory markers, and all of you people must know that there will be the inflammatory markers are ESR, and C-reactive proteins will be very much raised. And if you are going to examine the sputum will be the foul smelling, and it is showing you the lots of neutrophils, bacteria will be there, Then there could be culture could be positive from the transtracheal or of the transbronchial aspirates, and these can also be cultured. Then there could be the bronchoscopy could be done, and it can exclude the obstructive lesions, and also it helps the bronchial drainage of the pulse. So the complications of the lung abscess includes extension of the infection into the pleural cavity, hemorrhage can develop into the lung abscess. There could be the dissemination of this lung abscess, and it can go into the brain and causing the development of the brain abscess. There could be meningitis from the septic emboli from this lung abscess, and as you know that there could be development of the amyloidosis, especially type A. Thank you very much. This is all for today.